to the 49th edition of the Montreal Festival du Nouveau Cinéma. Thanks for joining us. My name is Émilie Poirier, and I'm the head of the short films here at FNC, and I'll be your host for this Q&A. You've just watched program number 2 from Les Nouveaux Alchimistes competition, and in this program there were many films. So the first one was Coldshot from Evin Collins, May 35 by Tina Takemoto, one by Anouk De Clercq, When We Are Nothing Left from Milja Viita, Sfumato by Robert Seidel, Note Imprints on Love Part 1 from Alexandra Cuesta, Inflorescence by Nicolaas Schmidt, and The Peepul Tree by Sonja Feldmeier. So with us today for the Q&A, we have Evin Collins, Tina Takemoto. Sorry, I went really fast, so I will start again. So we have Evin Collins. So hi, Evin. We have Tina Takemoto. Hey. We have Anouk De Clercq. And we have Robert Seidel. We have Alexandra Cuesta. Nicolaas Schmidt. Hey. And we have Milja Viita. Perfect, thank you so much. So we will go in that order for the general questions. So the first question is not really a question, it's more, can you introduce yourself and your film that is at FNC this year? And we'll start with Evin.
Hey, hi, my name is Evin. So my film is Coldshot, and it's a 12-minute cutout stop motion animation that I made over the last, 2 years or so. And it's based on sort of a surreal train journey from Winnipeg, Manitoba, up to Churchill, which is up on the Hudson Bay. I used to work as a porter on the railroad, so it's kind of comboed from past experiences and a bit more.
Thank you, Evil. So, Evin, so the same question for Tina. So please introduce yourself and your film. Oh, your mic is not open.
Hi. My name is Tina Takemoto, and my film is May 35. It's a tribute to the Tiananmen Square uprising of June 4th, 1989. And the title is in reference to a phrase that is often used, especially in China, to refer to the uprising, but to evade censors. So May 35 is May 31 plus 4 days. I made it by taking quite a popular or well-known image of the protests a couple days before the massacre, figured out as many ways as I could to transfer the imagery onto 16mm clear leader using razor blades and glue and scotch tapes, things like that.
Thank you. I will follow with Anouk.
Hi, my film is called One. It's a film, obviously. It's a performance as well. And it's first and foremost, maybe an attempt to for a 21st century protest song. It's a call to action, summoning of consciousness of some sorts. And it's a collaboration with Vessel, who is a young composer, and with Helga Davis. And so together we created this song, let's say, that hopefully will activate a lot of senses.
Yes, I hope so. Thank you. We can follow with Robert.
Hello, I'm Robert Seidel, a Berlin-based artist, and Sfumato is based on a video installation I did a while back. And while the video installation was really long and almost static, the film is very compressed, so it's very maybe intense in a way. The images are floating by, and I was interested in creating a way to show the construction of a painting, but in kind of a time lapse and mixture between slow motion and time lapse, so you could say.
Thank you. Same question for Alexandra.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. My film is called Notes, Imprints on Love, Part 1. It's a film that began a while ago. I shot it in 2017. And it really kind of started like a collection of images of this city where I was living at the time, which was in upstate New York. So in a way, it was a film that I was making to kind of understand this space. But then over time, it became a diary film without intending to be. So it's part of a series, but this is the first one.
Okay. Thank you. We can follow with Nicolaas.
Hi, bonjour. This Inflorescence, and it's can you hear me? And it's an 8-minute concept loop video about gardening in times of thunderstorm.
Thank you. We'll finish with Milja.
Okay, hi. So I am Milja Viita from Finland, Finnish filmmaker, and my film is titled When We Are Nothing Left. And it's I wanted to make quite minimalistic film that it only concentrate on the movement itself or the motion in the picture. And it's kind of an I can say it's a kind of an experimental film, experimental kind of a nature film that it actually expands out from the earth in a way. And it's shot on 16mm high contrast copy film, which actually gives quite a lot of visual kind of it adds quite a lot. I mean, it would look very different if I would use another other kind of stock. And it's what more? It is actually it's shot on in Ontario in a film farm. So it's kind of a film farm film as well, where I participated 2018. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Another general question for all of you guys, I will ask, like, because we are in the New Alchemist section, it's more like in between like video art, experimental cinema. So I wanted to know what interests you in a more experimental cinema, and if we can call it that in your practice, and why is you chose this kind of outlet like in cinema. So we can start with Evin.
Yeah, for me, I guess I'm a visual artist who did lots of drawing and painting and comics before. So to go into stop motion animation with puppets and all of that felt like a natural jump. And the work I do is all very narrative. So yeah, so I mean, I guess it's just sort of playing with narrative and ambiance and yeah, just experimenting and playing with all of that and seeing how it all comes together. Like, I don't worry too much about storyboards or things like that. When I work personally, I just sort of focus more on the mood and kind of the action, I guess, and build off of that.
And the technique you use, like, can you speak about it a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. It's all like paper cutout puppets, and it's stop motion animated. So I use like a multi-pane glass setup. So the camera was up top, and then I was basically with like little basically like pens and dentist tools, like animating, you know, the puppets along and using paint and salt and other sort of different materials I had kind of available to sort of add different accents to it. And it was all stop frame, like there was no digital intervention or anything like that to the work.
Okay, thanks. And Tina, for you, like same question, and like in your case, you can maybe add more like why speak about like these uprising in a more experimental way and not like in a documentary like kind of way?
Sure, thanks. So I also come out of a more mixed media background. I was actually trained as a painter many years ago. So it's interested in thinking about how to make a film without a camera and using a single found image from the internet, and how to use the most, DIY processes of trying to lift that image off of, like very cheap kinds of drugstore printed photographs and things like that. And I was also interested in the ways certain images become iconic. So images on the internet, they circulate, they become iconic. And it's difficult to, for instance, look at some of the Tiananmen Square imagery that was of the peaceful protest, that when we look at them, we always look at them through the lens of the violence that occurred afterwards. So I was trying to figure out how to gesture towards an image, but also evoke the kind of emotion and violence that resonates with this image.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We'll follow with the same question for Anouk. Ah, le micro, the mic is close.
Yeah, so I'm a filmmaker and I'm an artist, and I present my work both like in film festivals like FNC, but also in museums and galleries. And there used to be a time when having one foot in the art world and one foot in the film world was a difficult position to hold. But fortunately, we are now in a time when that it's a bit more comfortable, this position. And you have this scene that it has now a name, multiple names. You have artist film or artist moving image or artist working in film. I mean, there's a number of ways of how to describe, let's say, the field that I usually work in. People call me experimental filmmaker sometimes. I don't really mind what people call me, as long as it is decent and respectful kind of. But no, so what I really love is, of course, experimenting with the medium and trying to search for ways of communicating also with the other arts, music and theater and text and everything. So this exploration is something that I find incredibly inspiring. But also, like, within them, cinema is to explore new ways of seeing, maybe new perspectives on how we see the world, and new ways of making images as well. So it's just a wonderful time of playing, let's say.
Thank you. Same question for Robert. So please, speak about your process and why experimental cinema is kind of your outlet.
First, I started doing drawings, and I always felt it kind of complicated or hard to decide when it's finished, because I always like to add something or to remove something. And when starting doing experimental films, which are a combination of analog and digital techniques, I was kind of made free in a way, because I didn't have to decide anymore if this is finished or not, because I could arrange in time and kind of go back to different moments that were interesting and reiterate them and really sculpt with time. And with this doing for films, I later tried to recreate these same processes of abstract imagery in video installations and large-scale projections, because I always felt that I love the way I create my films, but an audience either gets it or doesn't get it. But if you put it into nature or on architecture or on actual physical space, it's much more accessible. And I like this combination of working for an audience in a festival or theater and all these different places.
Thank you. So same question for Alexandra.
Okay. I think it's similar to what a lot of people have said. I guess my background is in experimental filmmaking, but I began as in still photography.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was really important. It has always been really important to be behind the camera. I feel like that's the way that I can understand the idea that I'm interested in. So, and also for me, it's really about finding these different processes of working, and usually with 16mm film. This film is also shot on 16mm. Yeah, so I'm interested in finding different ways of looking, but also experimenting with the process. So for example, for this film, I was really thinking of filmmaking as an everyday practice. So being able to make one shot a day, and then all of a sudden over time that collected into a narrative. But my process doesn't really usually begin with writing. So it's really kind of through the experience and through the camera. And like somebody said before, it's a very freeing kind of thing to be able to access filmmaking in this way without kind of this hierarchies or like, you know, set structures of working. It's more about your relationship to the world through the experience of making.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. We'll follow the same question with Nicolaas.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yep.
Before my mic was deactivated, I guess, the introduction. Should I repeat? Or
no,
did
okay.
you understand?
Yeah, we understood.
Yeah, okay. Inflorescence, the question was background for making. Yeah, it was a very spontaneous work, but took also 3 years. At first, it was an infinite loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I planned to show it at exhibitions, but at some point when the music comes into too, I want to watch it at cinema. So I made a version for festivals.
Oh, cool.
So have the chance to experience this loop in the cinema. Yeah, and I'm a bit surprised that I'm not the only one who's interested in this minimal, redundant banality stuff. And this is usually my starting point. I'm just interested in pictures and sound and play around and repeat it until I feel some meditation like relaxation in my body. Yeah. But I make it always in bed right before sleeping for myself. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So the same question for the last person. Can you pronounce your name again? Milja? Milja? Your mic is closed.
Can you hear me? So, Milja.
Yes. Milja.
Oh my God, am I there?
Yeah.
Milja.
Milja.
My internet connection is unstable.
Okay.
So it says, wait a minute. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, we have a storm in Finland, so the connection can pretty bad, but no, if you can hear me now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Am I there?
Yeah. My God.
Okay, cool. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. You know, I'm, for me, it's a film, the most important moment is maybe when I am behind the camera, when I'm looking the world behind behind the lenses, because I'm, you know, I find myself that I'm a little bit maybe nervous by nature. So for me, the filmmaking is actually kind of a practice of presence every time when I shoot. So, and that's the most enjoyable moment as well. So it's a great struggle for me to have the film like edited and make the sound design and everything, because I make almost everything by myself. So, but I'm a collector. I collect quite a lot of material. I just go on and if there's subjects that might be interest, but I don't really know. Sometimes it's difficult to find the words. What is the actual thing? I don't know. I know by instincts for what to follow. So maybe that's one reason. One reason to make experimental film, because it's kind of, I find it really how to say. There's like many ways you can dive and follow, and you can go into what will be the actual film, you know. And I'm also really interested on the materiality of the film itself. So at the moment I'm working with a 35mm looper, which will be focused only on the materiality, and it's really kind of an abstract in a way. It's yeah. But yeah, my background is also in visual arts. So maybe, I don't know, it just feels like natural. But I'm trying to learn. I found that you are always out, you know, lack of money when you're doing experimental film. So it would be a great tool to have in your hand, you know, how to make, you know, scripts and, you know, maybe to get some fundings as well. So I don't find that bad thing at all. So I'm trying to learn that in future. Yeah. But yeah, was there something, I don't know if I answered your question, maybe I did. Yeah. And you heard me?
Yes. Perfect. I'm gonna go back to
you know, there's one thing I want to say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was one thing I wanted to say, because, you know, one really important thing in filmmaking as well is the festivals, when you are able to meet people and, you know, you make connections with other filmmakers, and you give hugs and you receive hugs and you're handshaking people. I mean, that's now when we are missing that, when we are not able to do that, I just noticed that's really plays crucial role.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, but I'm really happy to be part of this Zoom Q&A as well.
So we'll continue. We'll go back for two more specific questions of each of your films. So I'll start back with Evin. And as you said, like you were like someone that were working in a train, and what like inspired you to like create an animation on that? And it's really interesting because it's kind of our Trans-Siberian for us, like in Canada. So it's really like poetic too, like to have access to these like northern roots. So can you share your, can you elaborate on like this concept and why you wanted to animate this film?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I spent a lot of time on the train, obviously as a porter, being based in Winnipeg. We would go to Toronto, to Vancouver, and then up north to Churchill on the shores of Hudson Bay. And every way you'd go, like it'd be a long ride, because it'd be about a few days to either destination and then back too as well. But the route up through northern Manitoba, I always found very interesting for many different reasons. It was, I guess, one of the more isolated routes. And I mean, most Manitobans, for example, like I'm born and raised in Winnipeg, you know, live within a couple hours of the American border and don't go that far north within Manitoba. So it's it's a terrain that is very alien, I would say, to the majority of Winnipeggers or Manitobans, because Manitoba has a population of maybe 1 million and more than 700,000 are in the south. But you go through all sorts of different communities that sort of reflect the colonization of Canada and the industrialization, and in some ways the stagnation as well. So it's quite eye-opening for many people who go on their first time. And you have I mean, going through different times of the year, you see different things with the environment. Like I've been up in Churchill when it's minus 60 degrees Celsius and nothing happens really. Like, you know, it's also known as like you know, a destination to go see polar bears or aurora borealis. So you have tourists from all over the world that take this train. And then you also have people who are going to work or returning to their communities. And many of the communities up there don't have road access. So they'll get on to go to Walmart in the next city or something like that. So you see a very different pace of life. But also you go through prairies, through boreal forest, sort of subarctic tundra. Yeah, the landscape is something. But I guess I also wanted to kind of toy with that because I mean, there's kind of this fascination and fetishization of the Canadian wilderness, you know. And I kind of wanted to subvert that a bit as well with the work by playing up the monotony and.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you. So I'll go with Tina. So like your film is really like also like poetic, but at the same time it's so rough when you read the description that you say, oh, you have razor blade with that and with the uprising, like what it means to you, like to work with that like violent like razor blade on that like kind of like uprising and social event.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I wanted, so it was, when I started working on it, it was the 20th anniversary of the uprising. And it was also in the context of some of the uprisings happening in Hong Kong. And I wanted to take the opportunity to actually spend time with this imagery. And I think as a lot of the filmmakers have talked about, you know, when you're alone with your work. I mean, some of you like to be with your camera, but I like to just be with the film leader and spending time with the physical imagery. And there's so much that's unknown about the folks who were protesters. You know, it's estimated that it could have been hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people who were disappeared or massacred. So as I looked at the faces, I thought, you know, who among them are still with us, who are not with us? And I think there's a way in which we also can become desensitized to imagery that is very familiar. So I wanted to create a film that starts off very abstract and maybe painterly, and that the imagery becomes more evident, you know, within the short less than 3 minutes. So just to slow down our process of looking. And also I'm interested in the way that experimental film, there's a lot of chance that happens in it. So you can spend hours and hours making meters of footage, but you don't really know what it's going to look like until after you get it digitized and have another look. So, you know, these are things that that were of interest to me. And I would say in terms of the violence that you alluded to, you know, I was interested in trying to register how the process of reproducing imagery or salvaging imagery can feel inadequate or violent, or, you know, so I wanted to show that scraping off the imagery and placing it somewhere else is analogous to the violent history, so that the form is sort of embodying its violent history, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And also it's really interesting because as you said, like it's like the absence of memory, like when history have been censored, like with censorship, it's like it's still violent to cut some imagery or some things from the people. So yeah, it's really like a good way to put it in the form too. So thanks. I will follow with Anouk. So why it's so interesting to see like this film with this woman, like, and this protest song, like what was your inspiration behind it, and why you wanted to have like a 21st century protest song?
Yes, why why on earth
I'm really happy, but like why?
No, I know, but I'm being ironic, of course, in the sense, of course, that we all know the world that we are inhabiting now, and I think, I mean, for me at least, it felt like the sense of urgency for me as a person, as an artist, as a filmmaker, was in that sense that I wanted to use my work kind of as a platform to maybe raise awareness or create some kind of hope as well, you know, because it's very necessary with everything that's going on. So it's kind of like a work that wants to at the same time connect people, connect people also in some kind of worry that we have, a care that we have for the world and for each other. And since making the film, it's only become more necessary in a sense, like what I think Milja was saying before is that, of course, we are now connected, but over a distance. So yeah, I don't know. It's a way of the film was a way for me, like I wanted to try to balance poetry and politics in a sense. And it's a difficult balancing act. So it's to kind of at the same time be angry and at the same time to be sensual or empathetic.
And hopeful and
exactly. So it's kind of like a balancing act of sorts. But of course, I did not do this on my own. I had, as you say, there's the wonderful Helga Davis, who is the performer in the piece. And then there's the wonderful, equally wonderful Veskel, who created the soundtrack, and with whom I collaborated very closely to try and make this text that I wrote into something that is lyrical, that is a song, to enchant as well. So that was the whole joy of collaboration.
And was this like only for film, or you want this to be a art performance or an installation or something, or it's more for film festival?
Both. I have presented it already in an exhibition context as well, together with another piece, also a collaboration with Helga Davis and Veskel. So it's two pieces that kind of go well together in an exhibition context. And yes, I mean, there's a number of other exhibitions that are coming up where the piece was invited. So yes, it's also kind of when you create an exhibition and when you create an exhibition around this film, in this particular film, it's really about creating this space of coming together and listening to her talk, this kind of cry out for an attention for each other and for the world and how we live in this world and how we deal with each other. So it's also about creating this intimacy of listening to her and maybe if you see it a couple of times, maybe even singing with her.
Thank you. I'll follow with Robert. Can you speak about like the installation that were before this film, and also I'm gonna follow up with a second question already, but like is the name of the film like Sfumato, like the technique, is it like present in a digital way? Like why is it called Sfumato? Is it like the real painting technique that you played on like digitally? Like can you elaborate on all of that?
So the installation, it was part of a solo show of mine, and I wanted to work with two quite large projections of the movie, but slowed down to the point where you when you enter the room, you don't know if it's moving or not.
Okay.
And my goal was that the audience follows the exhibition and comes back to the entry piece and it has changed. And then kind of they question the different concepts of time in painting and film and all these things. But for example, what I didn't expect that there are people that watch these 30 minutes of slow motion painting in the gallery, because mostly people rush through an art space these days. And then there were people that were kind of taking it as a serious act of cinema in a way. And that was surprising to me, because I wanted just to kind of show that film has very different timescales in its...
Trick them, like, kind of.
Yeah, just question them if they have seen the piece already. Because if you run through something and then it has changed, you might think you have taken a wrong turn or whatever. And Sfumato refers to painting mode in Renaissance art, where the color is very blurry and very layered, and where you feel that the color glows, that there are different layers that flesh out skin or clouds and all these very complex organics phenomena. And the film itself is based on analog painting drawing moments that then get kind of sculpted in time digitally. So I was using very concrete lines that get distorted and dissolved over time. And I was interested in creating these moments where you don't know if you actually see a layer of something, or if you look into a volume, or if you look into a tunnel in time. And it's kind of these experiments where I try to question certain ideas of painting and try to apply them to film in a way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Without Alexandra, like your film is in between like experimental moment, and we see all these like post-industrial like landscape in the US, and you mix them with like a love story, your own love story. Like, can you elaborate on like your place as a filmmaker in your film and in your practice too? Like, I'm not sure, like, are you doing that in every film, like your position in the film, or it's like the first time, or can you speak to us about this?
Yeah, so it has a lot of layers. I've never been in my film. I've never made any sort of like, diary autobiographical films. Although I do think that, all the films that you make are an expression of yourself, and you're showing how you see a certain thing, but I've never been actually in it. And I think, as I was saying before, I hadn't intended that. So on the one hand, I was, like I said, living in this new space. It's a very post-industrial landscape, very isolating, like long winters. And I come from South America, so that all of that was very new for me. So it was already like living in this very inhospitable environment. So filming it was a way of understanding this space. But then the other part is also what I mentioned before, that I had just finished a long film, a long feature film, and it took a long time to make, and I had been working with a team of people. So it was a very different way of working. And in a sense, I kind of really needed to go back to this, the roots of why you film, and kind of having that pleasure again in looking and making an image. So I wasn't really thinking of what this material was going to be. I just wanted to do the daily practice of making an image. And then what is interesting is that in this time period of filming, I was filming the city, but I was also filming the plant in my house. And I was just really focused on space and objects as how they hold information and how they hold meaning. Then in time, these events happened. So there was the end of this relationship, me leaving this city. And even though I didn't intend, it became this narrative of that event, of that thing.
Farewell or something, yeah.
So then the other layer is that I didn't edit right away. So I had shot, and then just like 2 years later, I looked at the images.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's this other kind of layer of the film, which is the distance that happens between, you know, creating these very personal images, but then kind of stepping away from them and seeing them. And then also what happens in the editing is that you know, it's kind of like memories. When you remember something, it's not necessarily linear, but when you're putting it into a structure, you have to organize it. And so then the editing process also became this kind of meditation of separation that I think what the film is about. So the film kind of becomes this like act of forgetting, like making a film to forget. So you know, it's kind of like recontextualizing these very personal moments and images.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, I don't necessarily think it's like a straightforward diary film. It has this, it almost becomes like a fiction of your own life, you know, even though it's documentary as well, you know.
It's kind of a fiction of your own life, but at the same time, you make the viewer discover like these, like landscape of the US that not are oftenly like shot like that in all of these memories. So like it's kind of really interesting that it's not linear in that sense, like.
Right, and that I think my films are always kind of made in this way where I have very different, I don't know how to say, like parts. So like the industrial landscapes, then this like intimate interior spaces. And I never know how they're going to connect, but somehow they do. And so it's this thing that I love about filmmaking where it's like a synchronicity. So in a sense, these like industrial landscapes start to describe this story, but I didn't really intend that at the time. So I think it's kind of like filming the absence of something before the absence actually occurred.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
We'll go with Nicolaas. Your film is really like poetic, and this loop, and I think it's mostly the sound that helps us to understand the deterioration and like the meditative way of like the resistance and redundancy. So it's really interesting. So I don't know, like, can you like elaborate on your desire to make like that kind of film that like made us like feel like that?
Yeah, it was kind of random. I hear a lot of 80s songs still, and I was stumbling about this song line, "Don't Dream It's Over," and for the two different perspectives or meanings of this sentence. And I had no idea if it meant don't dream, it's over anyway, or don't dream, it's over because it isn't now. There's still hope, yeah. And this, and I still have no idea how it's meant in the song. So this line is turning around in my head, and I searched the picture and combined it and make it a bit slow-mo, yeah, for more meditation style, and for time to thinking about. Also, there's a repetitive moment or redundancy. Yeah, it's up to anyway to thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and like I know that this kind of film, it will be preferred like to be on big screens and like maybe on installation. Have you thought about like doing more like an installation or I don't know, like maybe more of an event with that film, or it's more like reserved to film festival in like a cinema or?
Yeah, I absolutely. It's made for cinema, like all my other films, which are even more minimal, and therefore for this conceptual minimal stuff, you need cinema, or I need cinema to also. It's unique ways to help people stay strong and don't give up, and to sit in your chair like all the other people around you, and don't stand up and go away, like in art context or in doing an exhibition or so. So it's an essential for me. Cinema today is a reason. Today, this is the reason for cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Help people, or yeah, give them a chance to have time with oneself.
Mm-hmm. So thank you, Nicolaas. I'm gonna go with Milja. When we see your film, it's more like a study on time, but like, what would inspire you in the spirit of William Blake to do this film?
Well, first of all, I need to say that maybe because when I traveled to Canada from Europe with the cargo ship, and it took like 1 week, and then I had this idea that I wanted to travel like ground. So and in the end, I found myself from the little pond where I have this oceanic feeling, you know, and you have this oceanic feeling that, you know, and then that feels that you are like part of a universe and everything. And then maybe that was behind this inspiration of Blake as well. You know, this kind of mythic way of thinking your life. And then on the other hand, it feels like when I'm thinking about that specific film, it's like you don't really know if you are in or out. Where are you exactly? Are you on Earth, or are you, what is the distance you are looking, and what is the like which are the measurements? Like, you know, my measurements is my body, and when I'm, you know, I can walk like maybe 5 hours a day if I really push it. But yeah, and if I work with my electric ball legs and it's really heavy, and you know, my body is again the measurements. And then on the pond, when I was concentrated on this really tiny little frame, and I chose to shoot with 64 frames per second, and each shot is the one roll of film. So each shot is 100 feet. Obviously, of course, I edited it afterwards. So, but the act of filming was really
also,
like, yeah, it plays a big role in this film. But through that oceanic feeling, I became to William Blake's like this kind of mythical, you know, this universal kind of measurements, like planetary kind of, and what I mean, and this special moment. This is really a short little moment that human races exist here in this planet, and again, our two meeting here, and all these little moments that we are like sharing, and we are like, you know, we're contemporaries. We are like sharing the time and this kind of stuff. I mean, Blake has this kind of huge element in his arts as well. So, yeah.
It was echoing really well. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So, thank you. Any last words that you want to share on your film before we are finishing this hour of Q&A? So if someone wants to take the mic, you're welcome to do it. You're so like shy. No, it's okay. It's okay. I can just like finish this with thanking you for your film at the festival. We're pretty happy that you all accepted our invitation. We're so thrilled that people will see these programs. So thank you so much for taking the time, for being here with us to discuss your film. And it was a pleasure to present them like together in this program. So, and if you like this program, please don't be shy and share it on social media, guys. And everything will be online until October 31st. So feel free to discover other films, other programs on the FNC platform. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.